Now we're going to keep on moving through our journey of talking about the different types of vertebrates. So this first group, we're going to talk about the fishes and the amphibians. So let's get into an overview slide. So this is going to talk about, so we're just talking pretty much about the deuterosomes, and then we'll be talking about like the true chordates from now on. So we kind of hit on the sea stars. Like technically this guy above here, he is not a, they're invertebrates. And then we talked about these two like subgroups right here. They're kind of at one point in their life, they have the 4 categories. So now we're going to hit on, sorry if the mouse is over the place, these different groups right here. Like I mentioned, they love to make these words as hard to say as possible, but we're going to talk about the fish and then the amphibians just a little bit. So let's get into them some more. So your little fishes are about 31,000 species, and this is going to form the most number of clades within the vertebrate phylum that we're talking about. Now these are going to be the earliest vertebrates, and think about these guys, they are going to be in the aquatic environment. Now with the fishes, you're going to see a lot of diversity in how we go through and talk about them, but we're going to break them like different categories. Now you're going to see the earliest ones are going to be jawless fishes. They're the most primitive ones, and we'll talk about them in the next couple of slides. Those are going to be your present day hagfishes and your lampreys. Now with the fish, we're going to start to see these distinct cranium forms. So you're going to have the head group or the skull, and they have those complex sense organs, which are their eyes. Now these groups are also all active feeders. So as I mentioned, the first subgroup that you have are the jawless fishes. So these are going to be your Clade mixini, and these are going to be your hagfishes. They look kind of gross. They look exactly like that. They are eel-like scavengers, and they thrive on the ocean floor. So if you ever see like that dead whale or something in the bottom of the floor, you will see a lot of these guys feeding on that and also on dead invertebrates. Now what's unique about these guys, they have these slime glands under the skin, and it produces so much mucus, and that allows them to kind of escape predators quite easily. They do have a skeleton, and it's made up of cartilage. It's just more of like a, it's not as strong as bone, but it's kind of more flexible. Think about like the tip of your nose or on your earlobes. They do have that notochord that runs the entire length of the body, and technically we say it's not a vertebrate since they don't replace the notochord with the ventral column development, but they fall into this category and with enough quality right there. So this is a video that shows like a tank of these guys and the amount of slime that they can produce. It's really cool to watch and quite scary too. Now next of your jawless fishes, we have the Clade, Mycotinidae, or call them your lampreys to make life a little bit easier. Now these are going to differ from the hagfish. They have a true cerebellum, and they're going to have these intrinsic eye muscles and these simple vertebral elements. It's kind of hard to see, but when you think of a lamprey, you probably see this kind of mouth structure right here. Kind of looks kind of scary, but you know that's like the key identifying factor for these guys. Now they do lack paired appendages and bone, and they have this tooth funnel sucking mouth, so it's kind of thing that makes nightmares right here. They can be mostly parasitic, but you can also see some of them are free living on their own. Now you'll find them in various marine environments, both coastal and freshwater environments. And I thought it was kind of interesting on the larvae, it can take 3 to 15 years before they actually reach sexual maturity, which I find that quite fascinating for a fish because that's like way longer. Another thing that I thought was kind of unique about these guys is the adults, once they reproduce, they die within days. So it takes 3 to 15 years to get to sexual maturity. You go through the process of having sexual reproduction, and then you die. Quite sad. But that's just a cool fact about these guys. So the first grouping was if it has a jaw or if it doesn't. So now we're going to talk about the jawed one. So we kind of break them into this group called the Gonathosomes, or they have a jaw mouth. Now this is going to have 2 different subgroups in it. You're going to have those that are cartilaginous fishes and both the bony fishes. Now what the jaw does, it allows for the animal to grasp into your food. So think of a shark. They are going to fall into this group right here. And once we have that jaw we open up a whole new world of food sources, so we can actually get more bigger and more complex. Now, the first one is the clade chondrocytids, I'm saying that wrong, which are your cartilaginous fishes. Now, this is going to be a very diverse clade of about 1,000 species. Now, what falls in here are your sharks, your rays, your skates, and your ghost sharks all fall into this group right here. They're going to have a set of paired fins, and the skeleton is made up of cartilage. And you're going to find most of them in marine environments, but some have been found in fresh water. Now, with that jaw, you're going to see primarily they're going to be carnivorous, but some of them are going to be suspension feeders. Think of whale sharks with that one right there. Now, with these jawed fishes that we started talking about, they have these well-developed sense organs to help locate prey. So you're going to see the eyes get more and more complex. But what's unique about them, and people have been studying this group and all of them, is they have this ampulla of Lorenzi, which allows them to detect magnetic fields, which is kind of cool. So they use this and these lateral lines to detect movement and vibration in the surrounding water. So it's very similar to like how we use our hearing to kind of hear things and detect where things are coming from in response to stimuli. Now, with these guys, they go through sexual reproduction, and eggs are fertilized internally. Now, I did put that one video where we talked about the different type, the parthenogenesis with the sharks, but it's kind of interesting. They have some different groups within them. Most of them are ovoviviparous, where the fertilized egg remains in the oviduct in the mother's body, and the young are born alive after the eggs hatch in the uterus. Some are oviparous, which are lay eggs that hatch outside the mother's body, and some are going to be viparous, which the young develop in the mother's body and are born alive. Now, this is a video that kind of talks about that in a little bit more detail. Another group, you're going to have your rays and your skates make up about 500 species, and they're going to have those flattened bodies, and they still have those enlarged pectoral fins, which are fused to the head, which makes them a little bit different than what you're seeing with the sharks. Now, your bony fishes, cute little beta right there, about 30,000 species, and as our previous ones have the skeleton made of cartilage, these are going to have the skeleton of bone. We're also going to start to see the skin have this scale coverings compared to like a shark skin, which is totally different. And these are going to produce some mucus to help reduce drag when they're swimming, and it also helps with osmoregulation. Now, they do use a lateral line to help detect movement, and we're starting to see the eyesight get more and more complex. Now, that's unique about these guys. They're going to have taste cells in their head, and they can detect minute concentrations of molecules in water, which is quite cool. You probably heard that with sharks too, where they can detect that drop of blood in water. So that might be true about the previous group too. What's unique about these guys is they have swim bladders that help control buoyancy, and they're going to be filled with gas, and they can reduce or increase the amounts to help with swimming. Now, it's broken up into the ray fin fishes and then the lobe fin fishes, and it all comes down to how the fins of the fishes are divided up. I'm not going to go into much detail about it. So the second big group is the amphibians. So these are talking about where we're going to start to move on to land. So if you think about amphibians, you're going to find them in moist environments, close to water, but now we're getting more terrestrial. So these are going to be made up of your frogs, your salamanders, your cilians. And what's unique about this group is they have what's called a dual life. That means they go through metamorphosis, and they have this mixture of both aquatic and terrestrial environments when they develop. So think of a tadpole advancing to a frog. So the tadpole life is primarily in the water, and the frog will live primarily on land. Now, with this group, we start to see the development of more developed limbs start to form. So, what were the fins and stuff is now being more reduced and forming actual legs and arms. Now, with movement to land, we still got to go through the process of gas exchange. So we're seeing that their skin is going to be moist and mostly permeable. So this is how they're going to go exchange that oxygen and carbon dioxide. Now, with this group, one thing you do notice a lot of them is they're going to have these larger eyes, and we're going to start to see these groups actually have color vision. A lot of them are going to be carnivorous, and you're going to find them in various regions, both tropical and temperate regions of the world. Now it's broken up into 3 clades, which we'll talk about a little bit on each of them. So the first clade is Urodela. These are your salamanders, about 620 species. Generalized body plan, they have those 4 limbs and a nice long tail. And they move by bending their body side to side, and it's kind of fun to watch a salamander walk. Now, some are going to have external gills, the ones that are located primarily in aquatic regions, and some of them are going to have the very primitive lungs because they are adapting to terrestrial environments. These are the most similar to ancestral amphibians, so it's our most, closest link between the fish and then the amphibian. Now they do utilize internal fertilization of their eggs, and I thought it was kind of unique about them is they have a prolonged courtship within the species, which is kind of cool. And then they do go through and lay their eggs in water for development. Now Clade and Neura, which happens to be the frogs, which is your most diverse group, about almost 6,000 species. What I thought was really cool about this, you can find this on all continents except Antarctica. Now, the body plan is more adapted for it to live life on land. So these are like late tadpole stage. They still have that tail, but you're starting to see these limbs start to appear. And this is a cool video that kind of walks you through the different stages, and you can actually see it change. I did a rotation in the development biology lab where I would study different stages of development and to get to the early tadpole. So I think these guys are quite cool. They do, with this one, is you see a lot of skin modifications that allow them to avoid predators. By use of camouflage and defensive chemicals, they'll have like these bright colors to say, hey, I taste bad, to warn predators and all that stuff. So it's kind of cool. They actually go through the process of external fertilization, and you think of, tadpoles to frogs with this one. So here's a cool video, as I mentioned, that goes through the steps. And then your last group of amphibians is the class Apoda, so Celians. When you think about these guys, it just looks like a next big old worm almost on there, but it's 185 species. They're going to have black external limbs, but they resemble giant earthworms. They're going to be found mostly in soil environments, but they have both teeth and jaws, so it's a worm on steroids if you want to think about that. Now they feed on small organisms in the soil, so probably other fellow earthworms, and they're mostly blind. So where will you find these guys? Well, the South America and the tropics, Africa, and Southern Asia. So these are kind of unique. I've never seen one before, but I just want to introduce you to them. So there are some review, mostly fun videos, and then credit for my images.